So the anti-war movement in America, many of them, not all of us, supported Obama, even though Obama said he would increase troop levels to Afghanistan. Even though Obama's exit strategy for Iraq was never what we called for in the anti-war movement. Even though he promised to continue the drone bombings of Pakistan. You know, I'm not for manned aerial bombings, but doesn't something seem so immoral about a young person sitting in a bunker in Nevada, United States, controlling airplanes that drop bombs, you know, thousands and thousands of miles away? There's something that is grossly immoral about that. It's like your son or daughter playing a video game and they're seeing it happen on TV, but it's happening for real. And Obama's rhetoric about Iran has been very not helpful to diplomacy. And I just found out just a second that the Pentagon is purchasing something called massive ordnance penetrators. They're something that can destroy 200 feet deeply into the earth. Doesn't massive ordnance penetrator, doesn't that sound like everybody in the Pentagon has erectile dysfunction? You know, isn't that what war, the rhetoric always seems to be about? Very sexual, but very violently sexual, right? So, unfortunately, since the big leading organizations in American anti-war movement, have you all heard of Move On? Have you all heard of United for Peace and Justice? Code Pink? You know, many of these organizations supported Obama. And they actually raised money for Obama. They actually got out the vote for Obama. They actually worked for Obama. Move On spent millions of dollars for Obama. And we'll have time for questions at the end. And now that Obama is just doing what Obama said he would do, everybody's like, oh my God, we need to have an anti-war movement again. Well, we had an anti-war movement in 2005. Did any of you hear about me camping in front of George Bush's ranch in Crawford, Texas? Millions of people around the world were in solidarity with us. Hundreds of thousands in the United States were in solidarity. We had a movement then, and you know what that energy was wasted on? Electing Democrats. And so in 2006, the Congress, both houses, went from Republican to Democrat. And so many people thought, oh good, now we can have change. Now the Democrats will stop funding the war. Now the Democrats will impeach George Bush and Dick Cheney. You know, now the Democrats will rein in the imperial powers that George Bush has taken upon himself. None of that happened. Nancy Pelosi, whom I ran against for Congress, did you guys hear about that? In 2008, I moved to San Francisco to run against Nancy Pelosi. Miss Impeachment off the table, war funder Nancy Pelosi. And so nothing happened except they gave George Bush everything he asked for. In America, during the Nixon administration, you know, he might be the second worst president in recent American history. During the Nixon administration, he was spying on his enemies, right? Reading their mail, listening to their telephone calls, whatever. And so after Nixon, Congress passed the FISA Act, which was the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which actually developed something called a FISA court. So if the president wants to spy on anybody, he goes to the FISA court to get permission. Do you know out of thousands of requests, the FISA court has only denied 2? And the president can even go in retroactively to get a warrant. So if in case of what he thinks is, he thinks is a national emergency, I would like to say he or she, but that's not the truth. Whatever he thinks is a national emergency, he can spy on people and they get a retroactive warrant. Well, George Bush didn't think that that was, he didn't have to obey laws. And so he regularly broke the FISA law. And our telephone companies helped him. The telephone companies, almost all of them gave him our phone call records. So they're spying now on emails. And George Bush admitted to it. He admitted to it at a press conference. He admitted to committing a felony, which is either 5 years in prison or a $10,000 fine for each violation. So did Congress levy these fines on George Bush? No. They modernized the FISA Act. Nancy Pelosi and company gave the telecoms immunity from cooperating in these things. And you know what George Bush said after the FISA Modernization Act passed? I couldn't even get this from Denny Hastert, who was the Republican Speaker of the House while the Republicans were in power. So Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats gave George Bush, it was like Christmas for George Bush when the Democrats came into power. Okay, so 2006, the Democrats betray the anti-war movement. So what does the anti-war movement do? Nothing. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to put a demand on you. If you don't end the wars, if you don't impeach George Bush and Dick Cheney, we're not going to vote for you. And you know what Democrats say? Who are you going to vote for? And you know what I say? How about nobody? If there's nobody there that meshes with your own philosophy, why should you vote for them? So the Democrats think they have us over a barrel. So we get this candidate, Barack Obama, or the Democrats get this candidate, Barack Obama, who voted for the FISA Modernization Act, who not only voted for it, but he encouraged other Democrats to vote for it. Hey, he knew he was going to be president. There's very few people who have the integrity to give up massive power. So you think Barack Obama hasn't overturned one of George Bush's abuses of power? He said he was going to close Guantanamo. It's still open. And they've already said that they're going to push back even the date that they had settled on. And even if he does close Guantanamo, he's expanding Bagram. They're making it even bigger and adding more prisoners to it. So many members of the anti-war movement work for Barack Obama, even though Barack Obama is clearly not a peace candidate, clearly not an anti-war candidate. Now we have to catch up. We have to reinvigorate a movement that was diffused by the Democrats.